a knowledge of the importance of personal boundaries and the expectation that other people will respect those boundaries really are at the heart of someone with the self-esteem to do what he or she wants to do and not what other people want him or her to do. I think as children get older, I think boundaries can be important. Kids set by other people. Kids want rules. They also want to know that adults are paying attention and watching out for them. I think children get really uneasy if they see things going on that feel uncomfortable to them and the adults are nowhere around. But part of maturing is developing your own sense of boundaries. And that can be tough during adolescence. It's like the push-pull of being independent but also being part of the family. And I think those are boundary issues as well. Getting more freedom, using that freedom responsibly so that you can be trusted to get more freedom. Those are all boundary issues. And they're really at the heart, when you think of it, of relationships. Healthy relationships, people feel that their boundaries are respected and acknowledged as important. If kids are given permission to let adults know where their boundaries are, then hopefully they'll know when to obey and not to obey, because they'll have a gut feeling that something doesn't feel right to them. I'll give you an example. I'm a big hugger, and I learned that not everybody wants my hugs. And I remember a young man, this was when he was in kindergarten, but my kid said to me, "Mom, do you notice how you go in to hug him and he like pushes away?" And I went, "Wow, you are so right." So from then on, every time I see somebody or meet up with somebody, I ask permission to hug. Because I was definitely encroaching on his boundaries, and he instinctively felt uncomfortable with that. And people have different, people have different ideas of their personal space and boundaries. When I think about sexuality in general, I think of it really boiling down to respect for self and other people. And as long as those elements are in place, your children are more likely to be healthy and be in healthy relationships and make the right decisions for themselves. I think that sometimes young men and boys are not given some pretty specific information about respect for self and others, and I think unfortunately the cultural messages they get about how to be a man don't include those things. And sometimes I think you need to be really specific with young men about respecting the boundaries of other people that they're in contact with. It's not necessarily something that they'll pick up on their own. It's helpful if a male provides that kind of role modeling and education, but that's not always possible. I find that young men and young women get such different messages about sexuality. And young men are pressured to prove that they're sexually active. That's a positive thing, while young women are labeled in a negative way if they're sexually active, and it doesn't serve either gender well. It makes young women less likely to acknowledge their own sexual feelings and determine what they want or don't want. It makes them more vulnerable to going along with what somebody else thinks is good for them, and it also makes young men less likely to respect themselves and the boundaries of others.